Hi, my name is Ciril Hitz, and I've had the opportunity to work together with Bay State Milling Company to develop some formulations using their HealthSense high fiber flour. And again, as artisan bakers, the challenge that I took upon myself was I want to make sure that there's no sacrifice. Sacrifice in regards to I want a loaf to look what I expect it to look like. I want it to perform the way that I anticipated. I don't want to change or retrain staff or my hands to be able to create a compromise in regards to the final outcome of a product. And in HealthSense, I have to admit, the only challenge was, and I figured it out very quickly, was that I need to be willing to add an additional, I'm going to ballpark it, 15% extra liquid, whether that's milk, eggs, or water. Now for the baker, that's obviously a great thing. The more water I can pour into something, the more volume I get. And I mean, of course, it's also the cheapest ingredient. So by doing that, I think I benefit as the baker. I think the consumer benefits from the health trends. High fiber diets are trendy. We want to make sure that we provide our consumer with some trends that fulfills and nurtures their family standards. So I tested the HealthSense in two situations. One using their white high fiber and one using their whole wheat high fiber. With the white, I generated a pizza dough that basically took a pouliche, introduced it into a secondary fermentative stage, and then I cold fermented it for about 4 to 6 hours and made pizza with it. But I want to test it a little further. I pushed it to the point of where I gave it an overnight fermentation in the fridge to see whether the natural ability of that dough can still perform through that cold, long fermentative stage. And I have to say, it worked fine. The only thing I would recommend is if you're going to try to push it that way, maybe you might need to leave it out before you stretch your pizza dough after it's been in the fridge for over 12 hours. With the whole wheat one, I wanted to test a brioche dough. And again, I introduced it like with any other flour. I tried to sort of start with about 30%, I think is a safe way to go with it, and introduce it. And again, I noticed right away I need to add more milk to the infrastructure of that formulation, and the performance and fermentation was phenomenal. It was incredible that I could add more liquid. I think even at the end of the bake, felt like I was able to generate maybe a longer shelf life. It felt like it was able to retain moisture and didn't go through that staling process that we, of course, always fear. The next thing that we did was I introduced it in a Penile. And again, I kept my sour fed with just white flour, and I introduced it into my final dough. And again, same scenario as before, increase water performance. I noticed maybe that the gluten formation at the beginning was a little strange, but within about half an hour of the primary fermentation, it seemed to balance it out, and it looked like any other dough that I've ever worked with. And then the last dough that I worked with was the Focaccia dough. Again, I used the pouliche as my pre-ferment. It was a direct fermentative process of about 4 to 5 hours. And it created super cell structure. It gave me great loaf volume, which you would think in a high fiber product that becomes a challenge, because as we know with with whole wheat flour, we run into the challenges of those the bran cutting through the gluten forming proteins and sacrificing the loaf volume. In the HealthSense flour, the reason I think why we're able to generate no sacrifice in loaf volume is that the starches that are naturally present in the endosperm allows the flour to absorb more water, but not sacrifice the integrity and end up with a low loaf volume, which again is something that I would never accept in regards to a production situation. So all of these tests were done using just natural fermentation, no additives, and I have to admit, from a baker's perspective, I was pleasantly surprised at both its performance and its great quality and flavor.